the vacancies on second floor spaces, offices, things like that. So then we start looking at what is the vacant space, what are possible build-out scenarios, you know, what may be coming in the future, and we create a model of what that impact would be on the parking system. So, you know, if the city tells us you have 10,000 square feet of second floor office space that is empty, you know, what is your parking impact on a weekday if that fills? What's the impact if there are developments coming to town? So we're going to model that as well. And so we're giving you kind of several layers of a picture. One is kind of current typical conditions that we're going to count. The second is event conditions. And then the third is future. And we put all of that together to come up with a sense of where we think the parking system will head. And again, part of that process is to figure out how many days a year we're talking about certain kinds of impacts. And we wouldn't advise the city to solve a once or twice a year huge event impact, but you know, if it's something that's happening frequently enough, it may need to be considered. So that's the process.
Do you know, going back to the parkimeters, do you know if the ones that we actually have, are those, do they have a possibility of taking, you know, if when it's available, the parking spot is available or not, or to have any kind of analytics on those parkimeters that we have or not?
I don't know. I don't think you can get good analytics off the equipment you have now. No.
I was going to mention actually, you can
Yeah.
in all the kiosk-controlled ones.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
White
That's
Street,
what I was
Bush
thinking.
Plaza, the streets, Monmouth, those all do have a data analytic
Yeah.
program that the boroughs launch.
Yeah, those data payments is already provided, the dumb meter heads, for lack of a better word.
Hello, Howard Bernstein. Oh, so you're first, okay. I'm a business owner here. First thing I want to say is to the people who keep talking about July 4th, when they have things in July 4th, which I used to come to before I was a business owner, I parked illegally. And everybody who came down here were parking in everybody's parking lots that said no parking, private, all that stuff. So that's where a lot of the spaces came from. I agree with almost everything that's been said in this room today. We do need a place for employees and business owners. I am one of the bad business owners who park in the White Street parking lot every day. And one of the things, or the things I want you to look at that I see in the White Street lot, which I consider problems for the town and image. The kiosks are difficult to use. At times, people come up, I can't tell you how many times I've walked up there and people have no clue how to use them and get very frustrated, and I've seen people walk, even though I try and help them, people will walk away and not even pay the meter. Cars park on 2 spaces because there are no lines in the White Street lot anymore. They are so worn down you can't see where you're supposed to park. So you will have people parking over both lines, and now they take up basically a parking space. I'm not afraid to pull into a parking space that is really skinny. I know my car will fit, but most people will see that spot and say, no, I can't fit in there, and they will move on. So the other thing, the kiosks don't work a lot of, I won't say a lot of the times, but it's very frustrating when you walk up to a kiosk and it doesn't work. There's a sign that says, sorry, we're not giving out receipts today. You push buttons, nothing happens. It happens more frequently in the winter because they work on solar, and if they don't get enough charge for their batteries, I know they go down. But it seems to me that they are electronic and they are connected to the parking department, and the parking department should know when a kiosk is not working properly or when it's not giving out receipts and come out here and fix it, rather than leave it for people to get frustrated and not know what to do. And either, again, people have left and not paid they don't go to another kiosk, but they should go to another kiosk, which I usually do. I do call it in to the parking people when you can get hold of them, because it's not always somebody there that you can tell that there's a problem. So those are my comments.
If dollars are wet, it doesn't work. Forget trying to get those machines to work when it rains.
Yeah, it doesn't always take your credit card
If the
either.
credit card gets wet, if the dollar is wet, they don't work.
The newer technology overcomes that somewhat, but in a perfect world, they should be under a shelter.
Yeah, exactly.
Good evening, my name is Michael Humphreys, I'm a resident of Red Bank. I think I need to point out to people who seem to be missing the point. This is a 19th century town that we live in, and we could turn it into a parking lot if we do all the things that people want to do, but then it wouldn't be Red Bank. It would be some modern town that people may or may not come to. That's one point. But my main comments are as follows. Right now we're hearing more about businesses, not residents, and I'm concerned that the residents are going to be rolled over in these investigations that you're carrying out. I want to make sure that residents have an equal voice to the businesses. I understand the businesses' needs, they're clear. I come to Red Bank for the last 30 years, I know what's going on. But residents need to live here and residents pay taxes. And one of the obvious questions I want to ask the town, Administrator, welcome to Red Bank, is that other towns charge meters 24/7. Ashby Park does. I don't find them ghastly because people aren't coming to visit. I get down to visit there, the parking meters are, you have to pay all day, all night. But, you do it. And it's not much money, it's $2 or $3 a night. It's not going to break the bank if you're going to spend $40 or $100 on a meal. So I'd like to know why the town is foregoing tens of thousands of dollars worth of revenue by closing the meters after 6 p.m. and then having all-day free parking on Sunday. That's a lot of money they're throwing away. And somebody is paying for that lack of revenue. That's the point. And I know that people are going to say, well, vote. If they have to come and pay, they won't come. Well, they go to other towns and pay. So why don't they come to Red Bank and pay? And finally, there's a lot of business parking. I've raised this before on other meetings. There's a lot of business parking in town that's empty after, let's say, 6 o'clock. Pick a time. And if there was some sort of insurance policy to protect the businesses, that should be open to parking. Most people look at the big sign saying, if you park, I'll tow you away. They think twice, except where the Valley National Bank is, because that's where I park. But I pay where I have to pay and pay when I don't have to pay. But I think after 6 o'clock, we should all still be paying. Thank you.
Ben Forrest, 16 Locust Avenue, also I serve on the Board of Education. It's like a mega council meeting discussion here. We've done most of this there for years. I'm a regular there. I don't know if I'm proud of that or not.
Sickness.
Yes, it's a sickness Sunday. I wanted to say a couple of things. Most of the stuff I agree with also tonight. I think some of this is self-inflicted in that we have, over the years, little small things, 2 parking spots here, 8 parking spots there, eliminate this one here, oh, this developer needs this. We have added to the problem ourselves by compromising, recently and for what? And a lot of it's well-intended, and I love having Count Basie here. And Count Basie is great for our economy. But it is, to a very large degree, we're a victim of our own success. This is a great town, and I have to say, I got to agree with my fellow resident over there that I really don't want to be the growth. I'm so glad we're not the growth. I love living in town, and I like having a thriving downtown. Now, I raised my hand and I agree that we have a parking problem, and I was slow to coming to that viewpoint. I do get downtown most days of the week. I like walking, as Cindy mentioned earlier, and I do videotapes, and I'll give those to you when I meet with you guys, I guess, later in the week. But a lot of nights now, the Count Basie is running things. And I have to say, sometimes downtown is a complete zoo. I've shot video of this because it seems to my fellow residents who usually disagree with me oh no, man, it's just on the weekend. No, we're way past just busy weekends downtown. And I go on and videotape over on the east side and the west side and walked over to where people park over the train station. And, surprisingly often when there's a big night at the Count Basie, this town is really jammed for a few hours. Now, I don't know whether it's realistic to cater to that. Maybe it's just a fantasy. Maybe we'll never find parking nirvana. If it were up to me, we'd have a parking lot underground so we wouldn't even see the thing. But I don't want, obviously the town doesn't really want a big mega structure in the middle of the town. I really think that finding parking for our employees and staff who make this town run is probably the most sensible thing here. That would solve a lot of the problem. I mean, and it really struck me because Mondays I meet with some friends of mine on a regular basis, and we try to eat downtown in Red Bank. And I've been shocked how often it is hard to park in my own town on a Monday, you know, in November or especially February, actually. It seems sort of weird. And it turns out that between parking permits and between employees in the town, the White Street lot is often filled, and parking to go to the in-between can be challenging. And, you know, we're not talking about Christmas here. This is a, you know, a Monday at 11:45, you know, in July, you know, whatever. So what I'm really glad is you're here to bring rational and experience to this problem, because I think I'm terribly worried that we're going to engage in amateur hour stuff here in the town, where, you know, the biggest mouth in the room, whether it's me or some business interests, is going to say, we need this, and we need that, and we don't need any more studies. We spent enough on that, and we'll do something that we can't undo. And we want to make progress against this against this problem. It's a good problem to have in some ways. It is a problem, but we need to be rational and deliberate about it and look at the real data. You know, I hear a couple of mentions about, well, we survived when we had the 4th of July fireworks. Oh, I remember the 4th of July fireworks. And if you start looking at the police reports from those events, I remember the brawls.
That's what it's
Yes, I remember those brawls, those fights in intersections that I personally witnessed and I had to call 911 about. And, you know, people, oh, we survived with that. Well, that's because you were probably, you know, some nice place where they didn't have any incidents. If you were walking through town, there were a lot of problems. It took 2.5 hours to get out of Red Bank. And there were thousands of people crossing from the Middletown Bridge into Red Bank and from Little Silver, and people came in the train. And, you know, Newman Springs Road was backed up for hours. I live on the west side, so that, you know, we couldn't even, it was very dangerous in some respects. So, you know, think, well, we did the 4th of July, you know, we can figure this out by putting a few, you know, that's not it. Anyway, thank you for doing all this. I hope we can make some progress on parking. Thank you very much.
Well, you had the mic first, go ahead.
Hi, I own a business in town almost 5 years now. Just want to say that most residents think that we're the demanding ones, but I can assure you we're the eyes and ears for the town as business owners. My business opens at 6:30 in the morning, and his business closes almost after midnight. So, right. So around the clock, we're the ones that see what's happening in town. Of course, you live in town, and you know, I'm just saying the residents also obviously aware of what's going around in town, but we're the ones that have direct contact with the customers that come in. They're the ones that are complaining to us. They're the ones that are telling us, you know, I'm not going to come to a place just for a croissant and then try to look for parking. So that being said, you know, I think the study will help a lot to really determine the amount of parking that's available, how we can utilize them, and educating people and all that stuff. But I also do really wish and hope that in the process there will be some short-term solutions as well as some of those longer-term ones, just like the parking meters that are fed by recorders are very expensive. And again, who do you think the customers go to for change? They come to us. You know, we're like the bank. I have rolls and rolls of quarter because I can turn them down. I want them to stay in town. I don't want them to be upset about it, you know. You know, we change every, I have to say on the weekends, I go through maybe 4 rolls of quarters just for customers and change. I mean, those meters are very expensive. It's just, it's a quarter for 10 minutes. But on the flip side, it's a 2-hour parking. So they can just keep feeding it for 2 hours. When I have a customer that just wants to come in and grab a coffee and croissant, that doesn't want to go to the White Street parking lot and feed the meter and have a receipt and come over and just have a coffee for $1.75. So that being said, you know, I think we just need to change how the meters are being handled on the main streets, Broad Street and the Monmouth, as well as the kiosks are another problem where It doesn't even tell you that you don't need to pay after 6. You know, there has been so many times I close the store, you know, on a Friday at 7:30, people are lined up to pay, and I'm telling them they don't need to pay. As well as on, you know, holiday times and when there's free parking, say on Sundays, they're still trying to pay because the machine takes their money. That's the other thing. These are the immediate things that comes to mind. But I just want to assure everyone there definitely is a parking problem where, you know, we're hearing every day from customers. You know, we're trying to adapt. There are restaurants that are coming up with solutions as, you know, take out, and they come to your car, they deliver it to the customer, because, I mean, we have to deliver it as well. They're calling us and they're like, I'm right by there, can you just bring it to my car? Sure, of course I would love to do that, but when I only have 2 other staff and a full of, you know, storefront, then how am I gonna, you know, come out there and also cater this person now? So there definitely is solutions we try to come up with as business owners, but it's.
What are your thoughts on the value of the 5-minute parking spaces that are sprinkled around us?
The 15 minutes?
I'm sorry.
Right, I mean, I love seeing those. It's great that they're popping up, say, group open, and immediately there was some arrangement that was down there. It's not happening down where my business is, which I could maybe apply for it, but they don't even know they have to pay that 15 minutes.
People don't understand.
They don't understand, they
They don't
think it's
understand.
free, it's a free spot for 15 minutes and grab and go park. That's what I'm saying.
And people try and put extra money in because they
Customers don't know that
think
they
it's
need
just
to
a quarter
pay
for
the
15 minutes, and you'll see them popping in 3 or 4 quarters and it doesn't register and get all frustrated and upset. And then people don't care and just stay there forever.
Well, that's.
I have one
That's fair too.
People that have the microphone to speak, give everyone.
Listen, I think we're impugning the IQ of a lot of people coming into town. Meters are not that complicated.
Again,
Talk to the people coming into town.
I'm Dan Reardon, I'm a resident and a business owner, although my business is off the bottom of your map, so I'm not sure I count.
You can.
So, when you asked, is there a parking problem, or is there plenty of parking? I had my hand sort of wavering halfway up both times. Because to me, at some times of day, in some parts of town, there's not enough parking. It's also true that at some times of day, in some parts of town, there's way too much empty parking. We have wasted spaces. But so I hope that you will take measurements at a few different times. One that's already been mentioned. Measure what the White Street lot in an evening when Count Basie has a show and an evening when it doesn't have a show. And I've heard a number of times from business owners that if they have 2 shows in a day, there's an even bigger crunch. So that might be worth measuring as well. The other one that people have kind of mentioned, but has been, every parking study in the last 25 years has said RBC students have a huge impact on parking. So I think it is important to observe the parking on a school day when Red Bank Catholic students arrive and when they leave. And it's easy to tell who's a Red Bank Catholic student. They wear uniforms. So you can actually count how many spaces are taken all day or taken from 8:30 to 2:30 by Red Bank Catholic students. And I think it's also important to measure on a weekday when Red Bank Catholic is not in session, so that you can see, is there enough parking in the White Street lot if RBC is taken out of the equation? I also think another thing that's important to measure is how many cars exceed the 4-hour limit. Now, there are, from what I've heard, 60 RBC students who park in the White Street lot in metered spots.
Permit.
No, not permit, metered. Because then they can, with their phones, extend past the 4-hour limit, because for some reason the system's set up to allow you to park as long as you like. But so That's in the White Street lot and English Plaza along Monmouth Street. It will be easy to do because the data's already there. You just need to get onto the borough system, and you can see exactly who's extending their time past 4 hours. And that's kind of the last thing I wanted to say is there really is a wealth of data out there that the borough has access to through this ISIS system or IRIS, whatever it is.
Okay, I'm trying to be really cognizant of time. We are running out of it. So, I'd like to ask, first of all, we're going to hear from people who have not spoken, and then we'll come back to people who have. But also, if you have something that's not been said, we'd like to kind of make that a priority too, because we're running quite low. Scott, you're next.
Scott Brochard, I am a resident, and I kind of live directly at where 3 and 4 meet, which is on the first house there with a direct sight line of all of the east side 2 spots. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to repeat everything, but those are vacant almost all the time, constantly. The only time I ever see people circling or looking for a spot there is a super busy Friday and Saturday night. So I don't know if there's something that can be done during the day to move people in there. It was mentioned by Cindy and a few other people, whether or not it's decreasing the price for there on that side. You know, you look at someone who's the person who's doing my coffee at Brook who's making $8 or $9 an hour, for them to have to shell out, they'll walk over there if the price is cheaper, you know what I'm saying? Or any other low-wage employee in town. And another thing I wanted to touch on too, a couple of gentlemen here mentioned technology. This guy here had a great idea with the open API. I really hope that's something that gets considered for the future as things kind of, websites and apps talk to each other more. It's all done through APIs, and it's a tremendous value. I would hate to see Red Bank kind of keep that data closed, because you never know what sort of technology can pop up. I mean, if I would have said to you 10 years ago, you would have a stranger come to your house and pick you up in your car and take you to the next spot, you'd probably laugh at me. But obviously with Uber and Lyft, that's changed the game. And then the last thing, technology-wise, there's a lot of things coming out, whether or not it's bike-sharing programs in other cities out west. They have scooter rentals through either Lime or Bird, kind of working on solving what's called the last mile issue, where people are trying to get to that spot through mass transit, which we have. And I think that's something that hopefully people would consider. Again, another technology thing that could be done outside the box that potentially help them.
Yeah, and we are going to look at those issues, at sort of multimodal and ways to encourage ride share and other alternatives, but also valet and shuttles and other options to make better use of the parking system and to enable people to kind of be a little bit farther out and still get the full use. So all of that would be in there.
Kate, you're on.
Hi, I'm Kate Triviano. I'm a homeowner and house store manager on Broad Street. I've worked various places in town since I was very young. Most of what I would have addressed was already touched on. I'm happy to hear that we'll be addressing future development in the study, considering multiple high-traffic businesses such as breweries and other amazing people investing in our town. That makes me happy, but will certainly impact our parking immediately. I just wanted to address something smaller, more on actually, it's a symbiotic relationship between businesses and residents. I mean, their gains are gains, so it's a symbiotic relationship. But we have parking that cuts into green space. We have parking where we could have a vibrant pedestrian-only street, which studies show results in financial gains for businesses. And we have parking where we could have more communal space. This has come up 2 times, at least for me in the past year. Once was with the Marine Park proposals. We had to decide whether or not we could have more green space down there by removing some of that parking, but then the concern was that we're removing parking from that area. The other time that came up was at a public bike and pedestrian meeting we held, where a lot of younger families and residents were really liking the idea of a pedestrian-only corridor, such as a street, and similar to other downtown districts in the state that are doing that. And the concern was immediately that we would be losing parking spots. So I would like to see precious communal space reclaimed and have our parking consolidated and strategically placed where people are liking it. And I know for a fact when I'm at my friends' houses in town, the younger families who are investing in our town, that's what they want. And it's something that would not only bring economic but it would make the town more enjoyable for residents. Thank you.
My name is John Bowers. I'm in the real estate business here in Red Bank. Been here a while. It seems to me that it's symbiotic, that residents and the business, there's no quarrel, because if we can provide adequate parking that's convenient for the businesses, it's only going to help the residents because it ain't going to impact them, except there'll be more people coming into Red Bank, but because there'll be parking, they won't be doing the loop-de-loop, et cetera, et cetera. The whole thing is, there's definitely 1,000 or more shortfall. Dan Reardon said at such and such a time, there's 500 car vacancies. There's all the parking you can find. Other times, there's not enough parking. Please keep in mind that because of the shortfall we have, the second floor offices are vacant. If there was parking, and if the parking was managed, and to be honest with you, the borough has fallen down at managing the parking. So if you have 1,000 cars more that is managed, it's the equivalent of 3,000 cars. So the borough's only a mile square, and out at the Grove, they have 400 cars, and it's more than adequate, or they have 4 cars per 1,000, it's more than adequate. So what I'm saying is, there's no question that there's a shortfall of parking, but in addition to the shortfall of parking, it has to be managed. In other words, some of the parking has to be 15 minutes, some of the parking has to be all day to take care of the employees, but it can be solved. And the joke of the whole thing is, not that the residents, or not that everybody can understand this, but at the Grove, people are paying $60 and $70 a foot net. And in Red Bank, you're lucky to get $20 and you're lucky to get paid. So we're all, the Grove and Red Bank are in the same trading area. But we can't get out of our way because it's not being managed well and we don't have enough. Thank you very much.
Yes, my name is Joyce Calleran, and I'm a resident. I have 3 different options. Number 1, have we ever thought about having one parking place, one of our parking spots, for the employees and students of the schools? So we would have them park at a cheaper per hour spot. They would be further away. Therefore, the stores, the businesses would have all their customers that would be able to park closer to the businesses. Number 2, and this is probably not a question that would be answered for tonight, but it is of interest to me as a taxpayer in this town. I know we pay a lot of money for the person that's in charge of parking in Red Bank. So I would like to know the job description of that person and how they could help this parking problem. Instead of paying the person that's in the head of the, let's say, the parking department or whatever, parking and utilities, could we use that money better? And as someone suggested before, have somebody out helping people that are driving around on a Friday and Saturday night. There are also many, I know, schools in this town, RBC, that they need volunteer hours. Put a shirt on them, teach them how they could help this town, be a part of this town. And then thirdly, I know in Ocean Township at one time, I don't know if this is still true, residents got a little bit of money back, even if it was 1% every time we went to your store or we went to your restaurant. We got a little percentage off of they get off of their taxes. Even if it was $10, that just means I would have $10 more to maybe be able to afford to go out to dinner. So those are my 3 ideas to maybe help the town with this parking problem.
But last 2, the gentleman right here and Steve over there. And we'll see.
First of all, I applaud you that we're going to take a quantitative approach to this. I spent 20 years in traffic, but it's telecommunications. But a couple of questions that I think is important for the town. One of the things when we designed telephone networks, we had greater service. what percent of people are we going to block? Because we can't afford to build to meet all demand. So you pick a busy hour. To me, I don't know what the busy hour is. And it was averaged over 20 hours. What is the busy hour you have to make that you have to meet? And what percent of people are we willing to turn away because we can't afford to have parking to meet anybody who walks in the door? Because it costs too much money. So who's going to decide and those objectives for the town? Because it comes down to cost. If you try to build to meet any demand that ever happens, it's too expensive. So you need to look at some kind of average. You need to decide what percent of cars you're willing to turn away because you can't afford to have it for everybody. And I just wondered how we're going to make those decisions.
Stevie from the Cheesecake here in Red Bank. I wasn't planning to say anything, I just wanted to hear from everyone else, but the one issue that no one has brought up tonight, and I think everyone would agree could be improved as a short-term solution, valet parking. Valet parking is done in this town, but it is not done effectively. And I think it's something that needs to be better controlled by the borough. It could be a revenue producer for the borough. It could be a value-added service for the customers that are willing to pay for it. And it can address those issues of people that don't want to walk and they're willing to pay for it. So I think valet parking is something that should seriously be looked at.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
My name is Frank Corrado. I live in Grid 4 up there. So a few things. Obviously, I'm in the Count Basie neighborhood, so I'm really affected by Count. Not only do I not park downtown, but I can't even park in front of my house when there are shows. So I'm particularly interested to see what's going to come out of that. A big one is safety. I'm not sure how much you're focused on parking and how much on traffic flow, but traffic flow in this town is pretty abhorrent. I actually just this morning spoke with a crossing guard, Bucky, on Maple Avenue, and he shared with me some pretty sad stories about humanity and what they would say to an older gentleman who was trying to simply help people cross from one side of the road to the other. I think there's some kind of correlation with how angry people are when they're driving through our town. So if we can make it a more efficient flow, I think that would be better. And I think one of the ways we do that is by reducing the number of cars where possible on the road. And I think one of the ways we do that is through an increased investment in things like bicycling and pedestrian areas in town. So for most people who live in Red Bank, they already know there's a parking problem, so we want to walk everywhere. Increase our access to pedestrian areas, increase our access to bike around as well. When we improve the infrastructure there, then we start to gather people from not just Red Bank, but people from Fairhaven and Little Silver. When they know that there is a place for them to park their bikes and there's a safe means for them to get to Red Bank, they're also going to choose that mode of travel. I think that creates a more healthy, complete community as a whole. And my last comment is really, I agree wholeheartedly with what Kate said around trying to, where possible, retaking green space. And as a resident, I would be more than happy to see some kind of, if we're going to remove current parking through a surface lot, I'm happy to, as a compromise, if we're going to reconvert that surface lot into something that can be used by the community as some kind of green space, community space, to put in a parking garage somewhere else to meet the parking demand that we took up there. So, thank you.
All right, well, we are under contract with the schools to vacate here very shortly, so we do have to wrap this up. But the parking consultants did indicate that we will be having a survey put out, so